participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Amal Saim. I'm a PhD candidate at Sakarya University ISE Farm Center. I'll be hosting this event today, and it gives me a great pleasure to welcome you here today at the 2021 International Congress on Islamic Finance and Economics, hosted by Sakarya University in cooperation with the Global University Malaysia, Durham Business School, and PESA. This year's conference, entitled Rethinking the Development of Islamic Finance, Rethinking the Development Role of Islamic Economy and Finance, New Horizon, brings together several speakers and participants from different parts of the world to discuss cutting-edge topics which are as important and relevant to academia as to the practice of Islamic industry. And taking into consideration the fast merge of our physical world into the digital one, this year's Congress aims to discuss fintech and Islamic financial markets, Islamic finance and SDGs, Islamic social finance, amongst several topics. And just a quick reminder before calling our dear professors for the welcoming remark, please notice that this program is planned as a hybrid program. Only the opening ceremony will be held here at Sakarya's University Conference Hall. The rest will be held and continue through digital channels. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Professor Dr. Azmi Omar, President and CEO of NCF. He will be joining us through Zoom.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sister. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assistant Professor Dr. Hakan Aslan, the Director ISFAM, Sakarya University. Professor Dr. Mehmet Asute, the Director, Durham Business School, Durham University, Professor Fatih Sabasan, the Director of Sakarya University. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. First, I welcome all of you, all guest participants, to this International Congress on Islamic Economics and Finance. ISEF 2021, jointly organized by Sakarya University, Durham University Business School, INSEF, the Global University of Islamic Finance, the Research Center for Islamic Economics and Finance, Sakarya University, and PESA. I believe that the theme of the Congress, Rethinking the Developmental Role of Islamic Economy and Finance, New Horizons, is indeed very timely, as the world is now facing multiple crises. Due to COVID-19, we now have health crisis, COVID-19 health crisis. We also have economic crisis. We have also the issue of climate change and sustainability. Indeed, this is, I would say, the first time that the world is facing multiple crises at the same time. So in economic crisis, we see increasing unemployment, where many people are being retrenched, so unemployment keep on increasing in many countries. We also see increasing poverty levels due to, one, unemployment. Secondly, because of the lockdown imposed by many countries globally, so we see also increasing poverty levels in both developing as well as developed countries. We also see increasing income and wealth inequality. So many people, again, we see that from the studies made, income inequality through Gini index, as well as wealth inequality are also increasing. We also see business disruptions. Many companies have to close, and many company failures, and particularly among the micro companies as well as the SMEs. So many of them are forced to close down due to, again, the COVID-19. And we also see increasing financial exclusion. If you recall, one of the global agenda of the Sustainable Development Goals is to increase financial inclusions of individuals. But because of COVID-19, we see there's an increasing financial inclusion across many countries. In sustainability and climate change, we see the issue of protecting our earth and environment becomes very important issue, not only to us as individuals, our societies, our communities, our country, as well as the global issue. So all of these issues create challenges not only to to the world, but also to us as Islamic economists. So brothers and sisters, I think what we need to do as an Islamic economist is to study those issues and to look at how we can go beyond Islamic banking and finance, but look at those issues as Islamic economists and provide solutions to those issues. Can we provide solutions not only in the context of solutions, for example, in the context of unemployment, in the context of poverty alleviation, solutions for income and wealth inequality, solutions to support micro and SMEs, as well as increase financial inclusions, and also finally to address the issue of climate change and sustainability. So we need to provide solutions. So to provide those solutions, we need to conduct studies. And I'm glad that this conference have those issues at hand and provide opportunities for researchers globally to propose not only theoretical solutions, but also to propose practical solutions. I do hope that at the end of the day, when we look at all those studies, some of them, of course, can be published in journals, but also some of them can be produced as policy papers that can be applied by policymakers in respective countries. Because we must bear in mind that the solutions that we propose should not only be theoretical, but also must be applied. And this is very important because Islamic economics and finance cannot just be in the realm of what we call researchers and academics. It must be filtered out to the policymakers so that policymakers can understand what are the solutions that Islamic economics can provide and how those solutions can help to address issues, as I mentioned earlier, on poverty, financial inclusion, climate change, sustainability, and so on. This is very important. And the topics that are chosen for this conference is indeed, I would say, are indeed very timely. And we should be looking at the applications of these things. So I do hope that at the end of the day, we can compile all those research into journal papers as well as policy papers that can be circulated and disseminated throughout the, not only throughout the what we call the OIC, Organization of Islamic Conference Countries, but also to the world at large. So again, I congratulate the organizer for organizing this conference and wish everyone a productive congress. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Azmi Omar. Now I would like to call Assistant Professor Dr. Hakan Aslan, the Director of ISEFAM, for the welcoming remark.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum to our all distinguished guests, who personally attended the conference here, and also those who are following this conference online all over the world. Firstly, as a director of ISEFAM, Sakai University, I just want to briefly talk about our research center. ISEFAM is a research center in Sakai University. We are focusing on Islamic economics and finance programs in our institution, which has been working for 7 years. We have master and PhD programs, and also we are closely working with the financial sector and developing workshops through our studies. Besides that, we are having collaboration with the universities from all around the world, from Malaysia to Indonesia to UK. And today, this conference, ICCF 2021, is one of the examples of our international collaboration. This year, Before talking about our conference, I just want to mention about our practical implication, our research center, which is also associated with our Congress team today. We have also established one Islamic microfinance institution, which is called ICSAR. We are implementing Qard al-Hassan-based microfinance in Sakarya. This is actually today we will going to talk in the third day of the Congress, social finance. So we are not only working on the academia just for researching and teaching. Besides that, we are also closely working with the field and implementing Islamic economics to the real life. In this way, we are making this is the ICSAR, which is, I give very big importance to this institution. It's a bridge between academia and the real life. This year in our ICSF, we started first Congress in 2015, and today we are celebrating the third Congress of ICSF, and we focus on the development role of the Islamic economics and finance. The Congress will be continued for 4 days, and in these 4 days, we're gonna focus on the 4 sub-themes, and each day we will have distinguished eminent scholars from all around the world, and each day, keynote speakers will be followed with the related sub-theme panel, and we will have very distinguished guests from the academia, from the real sector, finance sector, and we'll see just not only academic perspective of the Islamic economics and finance, but also we'll see the real practice implementation. Our sub-themes today will start with the sustainability. The opening panel would start with the real implementation of the participation banks of Turkey. So we'll see what they are doing about sustainability in the real practice, which will be our opening panel today. After that, will be followed by our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Mahmoud Mulhiddin from United Nations, which is also very important scholar in the field of sustainable development goals. We'll listen his speech, afternoon session, inshallah. Then in the second day, we'll listen Professor Mehmet Asutay, the development role of the Islamic economics and from the moral economic approach. On the third day, we'll focus on the Islamic social finance. I would like to thank Professor Dr. Azmi Ömer. He will also join us as a keynote speaker in the third day. So we'll focus on the social finance, then which will be followed also distinguished speakers from in the field and the other research institutions for the social finance. And the last day, we'll focus on the financial technology, which is especially after COVID-19 affected our life, and also we can see closely today, technology is inevitable part of our life. We'll see its effect on the financial sector. So we'll have distinguished guests from the Turkey and the Malaysia and other countries to discuss financial technology and the effects on the Islamic economics and finance, which will be keynote speaked by Professor Dr. Nafis Alam from Malaysia, Asia Pacific University. I just want to thank our all eminent professors and scholars for their contribution, and I want to thank Professor Dr. Fatih Sabashan, who has paved the way for Islamic finance in this university. And I want to thank Professor Dr. Mehmet Asutay for his immense contribution to organize this conference and his contribution to our center. And I want to thank all participants who are personally attended the conference and who are following online in this conference. Last but not least, I want to thank all the ISEFAM team for who made this conference happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now it gives me the tremendous pleasure to welcome Professor Dr. Mehmet Asutay, Director of Durham Center for Islamic Economics and Finance.
It's here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is good to be on the podium after 2 years, so good luck to you to listen to me. I think I'm not going to leave this podium. It has been quite long that we have shared the podiums, unfortunately, because of the COVID events. But it's good to be here to start this conference today. And I remember in 2015, we were here to inaugurate the first conference at Sakarya University. And therefore, it gives me an immense pleasure to be here for the third time, because second time it was in Istanbul. But it has been a great pleasure. And it is an amazing, one of the important, perhaps, issue with the COVID environment, what we have seen, the collaborations that we can bring together in order to enhance particular areas that we are working on. In our case, Islamic economics and finance. In particularly the geographic distribution, as well as the concentration of Islamic finance in certain areas, necessitates that collaboration. And the COVID environment, despite all these negativities, has provided us this amazing opportunity space to get together through online platforms. And here today at this conference, we at Durham Center for Islamic Economics and Finance, Sakarya University, ISFAM here, and INSAFE in Malaysia, managed to bring this conference together. And that perhaps, as an important message, this should be carried forward, bringing different stakeholders together to work together to make sure that we can contribute to the development of the field as well as the practice. Because single-handedly, unfortunately, none of the programs will be able to take up the challenges that we are facing. Islamic finance is an amazingly exciting area. It is emerging, it is happening, it is developing, it is progressing, and challenges, new ways of looking at. And therefore, it requires collaboration between different disciplines, and therefore this modern understanding of knowledge into categorized understanding of economics, physics, and sociology and anthropology doesn't work. So we have to bring the disciplines together, but on top of that, because of the challenge and the magnitude of the work that we have in front of us, what is important, bringing individuals and institutions to work together to create the synergies so that we can take up the challenges that we have in front of us. At the end of the day, there's this promise of establishing that Islamic society, peace on earth, Ihsan, and how, therefore, the economic activities embedded with such a normative understanding can be developed to make the world a livable place, a peaceful place. And peace, emancipation, and empowerment are the important messages of Islam in relation to Islamic economics and finance as well. And that brings the whole distinctiveness, why the challenge in front of us is much larger than we think. It is not only moving capital from A to B and then saying that this is because it is done in a halal way and this is Islamic finance. The challenge is much larger because we haven't defined what that capital is. We haven't done that, although we have the institutions operating, we have the scholars studying, but we haven't defined the essential fundamentals. And therefore the challenge, when I say that as a challenge, I'm not trying to say that it is not achievable. No, it is achievable. And therefore the importance of collaborations between different disciplines, colleagues, institutions, to work together to make sure that we go to the fundamentals rather than playing on the surface that we have been doing so far by saying that, of course, I'm not denying the contribution so far. We are immensely grateful to founding fathers, as I always say, for lighting the fire. It is because that fire has given us the opportunities to reach out to different parts of the world to bring that promise, a reflection, an initial reflection of that promise to the surface. And that promise is an important one, and therefore, as I always send my salutes and regards to all these founding fathers of Islamic economics and finance in the modern periods, that they had the courage to come up and say that there's something different, there's something alternative. Therefore, I'm hugely respectful to their legacies. Having said that, however, we cannot live with legacies. We have to overcome legacies in order to build better futures. And the promise requires that future to be articulated. And therefore, the importance of different research centers, whether professional or academic, as well as institutions, think tanks, universities, centers, working together to achieve or to work towards such objectives. Establishing peace on earth, at the end of the day, as the Quranic verse says, we are witness unto mankind. And therefore, it is our objective to take this message and establish as an alternative discourse, alternative practice to the rest of the world, as well as in our own territories, to make sure that peace is established, emancipation achieved, empowerment ensured. And these are important messages that, as I stated in the beginning. And therefore, importance of academic work. Of course, the professional area is important. We have seen the success of Islamic banking and finance over the 40 years. The capital accumulation somehow achieved. Transactional success has been achieved. But what is missing is the transformational part. And that transformational promise of Islam in general and Islamic finance, Islamic economics in particular is something that we have to be concerned. So are we doing the usual thing with an Islamic frame and address, or are we promising something different? And therefore, that brings me to my earlier comment on the importance of going into these foundational issues, discussing and revealing and constituting what is necessary to make things different rather than moving the usual story with different metaphors, Islamic metaphors this time. In other words, rather than just instrumentalizing Islam in what surrounds us, the global capitalism, and hence the inequalities that we are talking, climate problem that we are talking, rather than instrumentalizing Islam to respond to such matters, how fundamentally, in an embedded sense, different discourses and practices that we can develop in order to say that, look, there is a promise here, and that promise can be articulated in a particular way. And therefore, the importance of the new generation of academics, as well as bankers and financiers, because so far, most of us have not had a specialized learning in Islamic economics and finance. What our learning, most of us, comes from different disciplines, but out of our concerns on the what's ever going on in the world, but also our Islamic concerns, has encouraged us to move into Islamic economics. But now there's new generation emerging from different parts of the world with all these academics and professional research centers and teaching centers. New generation is emerging. Let's hope that this new generation can take this promise to further and to build a better future with a promise that we have. And so that the fulfillment of being a witness on the humankind can be achieved in the process. And that's an important objective function for us to consider. Hence, we should not lock ourselves with the usual understanding of moving capital with Islamic metaphors and how efficiently that can be done, but our objective should be how we can make the lives of ordinary people on the street. That's the promise that we have to work towards. And that's an important and noble objective, because Islam as a religion, like most of the religions, does not concern with the institutions. It doesn't apply. It is the human, the center of analysis in the Quran, as well as in other traditions, what you see human, how human lives can be made better. And that's the objective that we have to consider. And therefore, a new way of thinking, a new way of saying new things, that new things have to emerge, and hopefully conferences such as this one and others, but also research and teaching are an important part of developing this new saying. Whatever that new saying, but what's important that the human, and considering other stakeholders, because we are going through a crisis. We have been going through a crisis, and modernity has left us crisis. And it seems that, unfortunately, in the short life of Islamic finance so far, we are shouldering that crisis and we are becoming part of that crisis rather than being an alternative discourse in that. And therefore, importance of research and developing new ideas are immensely important for us to consider. We are going through another crisis. After the global financial crisis, now you have human crisis, the health crisis. Of course, that is linked to social as well as the economic consequences and human lives, unfortunately. And that shows us how the modern life is a typical risk society. And whatever happens, at the end of the day, who suffers? Ordinary people on the street. When we look at in the last 2 years, the global capitalism even becomes stronger. The rich has become stronger, much richer. You look at entire economies collapse, but the stock markets all over the world, including in Turkey, they did amazingly fantastic. The companies are not working, yet their stocks are making amazing monies. And the dilemma, of course, how we can explain that. On the other hand, people on the streets, of course, they suffered. And therefore, the promise of Islamic economics is very much that particular issue, that our objective is not the institutional richness, but reaching out to ordinary people to make their lives better. And that is an important objective that we should not miss in the process. Capital movements throughout history, everyone has tried to do it. And everyone used different metaphors. And now we are using Islamic metaphors doing the same thing, but our promise is much larger than that, and we have to work towards that end. I'm not going to take your time, although I know that I'm enjoying this, but as I haven't been to a platform for 2 years, but I respect the time. Just thank you for everyone involved in the making of this conference, but also the centers that we have, including ISFAM colleagues are working, and have my full support, and similar to other centers. But let's make our centers not just centers for the sake of it, but let's make it centers for development of new knowledge and new practices. And that's the important part that we have to focus on. Rather than our masters and PhDs, if it is not producing this new knowledge, then it seems that we are not achieving. And that's my fear. Although compared to, for instance, 1980s, 90s, we have much larger programs offerings, but when we look at the contribution in the initial period and in the recent years, entire our focus moved into, as I do, I'm guilty as well, entirely empirical research. The conceptual, fundamental research is not happening. And we have been taken up with this trend of publishing and neoclassic understanding. Unfortunately, we are doing just the data analysis, which is not wrong, of course. I'm not belittling, but there's a large promise there to establishing this foundational base. And that is a promise we have, and we have to work towards that promise, and it's an important part. And therefore, conferences such as, let's hope, and let's make them the knowledge productions, debate, and discussion, rather than instrumentalizing, just presenting papers and disappearing. And that's not the way it should be. We have to be coming together, discussing. And let's hope that we can achieve with this conference and others. And let's pray that we can collaborate, continue to collaborate, to develop knowledge that we aim to develop, but also contribute to the lives of ordinary people. Of course, nowadays we are talking about building back better. But that building back better starts with an assumption that what we have, it was okay, we'll make it better. No, it doesn't work that way, because what we have is not good anyway. So building on that, it will not going to make it better. So we have to, therefore, going into the fundamental issues, work towards and take up those challenges. The new generation, you guys, you have a big center here. You have quite a number of amazing people here. You have to take up the challenge, as well as in other places, we have to take up those challenges and make a difference. And only then we can say that we have tried to achieve, because we never know we can reach the truth, but we can make an approximation to truth, inshallah. Then we can say that we have tried our best in the becoming process to achieve. With that, I leave you, and thank you very much for everyone for being here, but contributing to this conference, colleagues and INCF. Of course, Sakarya worked hard to host this conference as they have been, but Hakan should forgive me for paying him a lot in the process of organizing the conference. I'm sure that he cursed me a lot, but he has all my blessings, and it has been difficultly busy times, but I think there's an enjoyable conference here with interesting topical areas looking into today sustainable development. Tomorrow I'll be talking about development and critical reflective. Then Professor Azmi Ömer will be talking about Islamic social finance, and then we have Islamic fintechs looking into the future horizons, how this happens. And let's work together, continue to work together to make the world a better place as the promise of Islam. With that, thank you very much to everyone. It has been a great pleasure to be here and working with you all. Thank you.
Such a great speech, as always. Thank you, Professor Asutay. And now it's my honor to call Sakarya University Rector, Professor Dr. Fatih Savaşan.
Esselamu Aleyküm ve Rahmetullah ve Berekatüh. Biraz önce burada Asutay Hoca vardı. Asutay Hoca hem alanın gelişimiyle ilgili hem de
Asutay, Professor Asutay, talked about the issues within the field. It was a brief but deep analysis. Following his remarks, it is a challenging talk for me. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being with us, either in person or in this online platform. I would like to thank all the academics, and I would like to welcome you all. I would like to welcome you to our province, Sakarya. As Professor Asutay stated, we remember the past. And when we say the past, in fact, it is 2012. Inspired by Professor Asutay, we discussed why don't we have a formal education at universities on Islamic finance. Thanks to Allah, asking this question led us to establish a research center in our university from the faculties of finance, business, and economy, and we established this center. All the consultations, exchange of views at that time demonstrated the challenges that we are going to have. Of course, when we talk about the challenges, it is all about the designing a formal education at universities related to formal education, and also there are some problems that are embedded in the field, since it's an interdisciplinary field. As Professor Asutay says, those who are specialized in different fields, different disciplines, may not feel competent enough to work on this issue. So we need to improve our skills, we need to improve our knowledge first, then we can specialize in certain areas. Therefore, we are talking about a delay about 30-20 years, but despite this delay, we have taken a step. Since the very beginning of this initiative, we are working on this issue to fill the gap, to deepen our knowledge, and we also observe that there are more universities which are dealing with this issue, and there are new journals which cover these issues. Of course, there is a rapid change in this respect, and it makes us proud. But also, as the professor underlined, there are still some challenges, and these challenges are quite natural in such an
bu alanın
environment,
kabulünü
because
sağlayalım.
there is one aspect
Daha
which
hızlı
is
yol alalım endişesiyle
how to convince
denirken
people to
bütün
acknowledge this
arkadaşlarımız,
field. That's one
öbür
point.
taraftan işin
On the other
hakkını
hand,
verme,
we need to work
kaygısını da taşıdılar.
in a way
Dolayısıyla,
to meet the
bir
requirements
taraftan
of the
hız, öbür
field, of
taraftan
the
kaygı, belki de bu alanın
discipline. So there is
daha iyi
pace
gelişmesine, daha
plus
sağlam
there are
ilerler
concerns to
şeklinde
achieve the
gelişmesine
goal.
de, sebep olacak inşallah. Sakarya Üniversitesi'nde merkez açıldı.
We have established the research center in our university, and we had the first congress in this field. There are more congresses, thanks to Allah, but it is important to maintain the traditions. Therefore, my colleagues will continue to organize and resume the ISSF congresses. The theme of this year is very important, as Azmi Ömer stated and as Astay Hoca stated. The Islamic economics and finance, and whenever we talk about Islamic finance, we should be careful about the term the Islamic finance is not a concept that acts for the sake of finance only. We are talking about how to focus on production-based means and also how to maintain relations with the market. So we are talking about conventional finance for countries and also among the countries, because the conventional system, in fact, fosters and supports only those who are already strong. But we need to expand, we need to change this concept. But this philosophy, the existence of this philosophy, indicates global problems which we are facing. We are talking about income inequalities within the countries and also among the countries. And it also shows that the solution relies on the Islamic finance for all these issues. Our university, Sakarya University, in collaboration with the Durham University and also together with INCF and also Durham University, I would like to thank Mehmet Hoca for his efforts, because as I said before, we were inspired by his initiative. And a few days ago, the UK just lifted the travel restrictions, and following this restriction, the lift of this restriction, he immediately decided to join us in person. The improvement in this field, of course, can be achieved through such efforts. We have students who are doing their MAs or doing their PhDs. We have students and colleagues who are ready to take the challenges for all these issues. Being a leader, being a pioneer is not an easy task, because there are some awards for being a pioneer, but there are also risks of making errors, and you accept all these challenges. So in this respect, academics, practitioners should be sensitive to all these issues and should keep these facts in their minds. Of course, we are having mobility at universities, but we also see that there are some colleagues who are working from an academic perspective in the civilian sector. There is this DICOM, which translated several publications into Turkish, and they are publishing also new materials with their copyrights. That means there is this conjuncture, and also there is this academy and related restrictions. There might be some limitations within academy, but If you are in a civilian sector, then you have more space to act. There are more institutions, some business organizations are taking some initiatives, as Hakan just stated. Karze Hasan and microfinance issues are being examined there. But last Friday, we had some other initiatives which were awarded by ICAM, and business people are taking some other initiatives. Of course, these are experiments which are important. However, we should focus on practice much more than theory only, and there is need for de facto initiatives. I would like to thank you all, and I would like to thank everyone who is making contributions to this field. It is important, and when we think about the last 10 years in Turkey, in our university and in Turkey, at the top management level, we know that the Islamic finance and also participation banking system are becoming more prominent. There are some steps in this respect. What we see that there are changes in the legislation, and also as a result of the guarantees from the legislation. So we are optimistic and we are hopeful. We are aware of the problems, and we would like to thank those who are making their efforts to solve these issues. Thanks a lot.
I would like to thank our dear professors for their valuable words, and we will continue with our first panel after a 10-minute break. We'll be right back.